All right, you're listening to the Maker's Quest podcast. I'm Brian Benham.
And I am Greg Porter, and this is our first episode of 2025. And Brian and I talked a little bit, thought that it might be a good idea to take a look back to 2024 and maybe take a little bit of a look ahead to see what's going to be going on in 2025. And Brian, the first question I've got for you, I know both of us did some shop improvements, I'll call them, whether that was tool additions or improvements to the shop in 2024. And my first question would be, what are your favorite or what were the best things that you did shop wise in 2024 that affected the way you work?
I'm gonna say the best thing was bring in a mechanic style toolbox. And I know that kind of sounds kind of weird because I'm a woodworker, not a mechanic, but and also I'm sure I'm on the record on this podcast saying agreeing with Adam Savage's assessment that drawers are where things go to die. But I've been watching this guy on YouTube, or not YouTube, on TikTok. He goes by the handle TE Videos, and he is a mechanic, and he puts his little camera on his hat and he just goes to work and shows you how he repairs whatever he's working on whatever broken vehicle he's got in the bay that day. And it is very impressive of how organized he has his mechanic's toolbox laid out to where he just grabs what he needs and goes over to the car, wrenches and goes, okay, I need a 10 milli, and then turns around, grabs the 10 milli socket, slams it on his thing, does what he needs to do, and just puts the tools back right away as he works. It's very, very efficient. And I thought that is one of my biggest problems I have is like I'll use a pair of pliers and then I'll throw them on the workbench. And in an hour, I have 30 different pairs of pliers and 10 different screwdrivers stacked up there. So I bought a mechanic's tool chest and laid it out very similar to the way he has his with my screwdrivers and stuff, and then other woodworking things that I use all the time. And I have it right behind my bench so I can just turn around, grab what I need, turn back around, do what I need to do. So that is probably the number one thing that I am really into right now.
I saw somebody not too long ago talking about organization in a shop and exactly that problem. I do the same thing, right? In any given project, it might take 50 tools to get through a task. And instead of putting them away, because I'm going to need that again in 2 minutes, right? You just kind of keep them out and going. And somebody said, don't put it down, put it away. And keep saying that to yourself over and over. Every time
Hmm.
you getting ready to set a tool down, don't put it down, put it away, because you can always get it back out. But when you go to look for it in an hour and it's not where it's supposed to be, then where was it? One of 50 different places you might have set tools. So that's interesting. That a mechanic's toolbox. So tell us about that mechanic's toolbox. Did you go to Harbor Freight and get like a General or Home Depot, or did you get one of the big boys?
Yeah, I went to Harbor Freight and I played with theirs, and then I went to Home Depot and I played with all theirs. I went to Big R and played with all theirs, and then I went to Lowe's and played with all theirs. And the quality between each one was significant in some areas, but basically they're all the same and about the same drawer depth and about the same drawer size and all that. But the thing that I noticed the most was the Cobalt at Lowe's. The drawers opened and closed the smoothest out of all of them.
Mm,
Like I was really disappointed in like the Craftsman that Lowe's had, because Craftsman's like that name you've grown up with, right? If
yeah.
you're Gen X or older, you grew up knowing that Craftsman was a quality tools, and back in the day they were lifetime guaranteed. So if you broke it, you just got a new one. And they were the crunchiest, hardest to open. Like you had to like
Really?
yank the drawers open, but the Cobalt super smooth. You can one pinky and just pop it open, grab what you need, and close it back up. So that's the one that I went with, was the Cobalt.
I've bought a few Husky cabinets here recently. One sits under my
Hmm.
table saw extension, and uh, it, lightweight use, right? It doesn't have
Hmm.
10,000 pounds of tools in it, but it keeps everything organized. And it's
Yeah.
so nice. Like, just like you said, but back to Adam Savage, right? Like his whole thing was first order of retrieval. That's his important
Hmm.
thing, right? And to me, that means wherever you're going to get that thing needs to be very well organized. It needs to be in the same place every time. A drawer isn't necessarily a bad place for first order retrieval things. In fact, it could be a really good place. It's just, I think drawers are terrible when they're in the back of the shop and they're disorganized because then you'll never, like, then things just get buried under other things, just like they would on top of your
Hmm.
workbench or anywhere else. So that's interesting.
And I think that's kind of the beauty of the mechanics toolbox is most of the drawers are only an inch, inch and a half deep, so you can't stack stuff on top of each other. Everything has to be, as Adam Savage says, nulled out.
Yes,
Or I guess that's a Tom Sachs
it
coined
is.
phrase, nulled out. Everything's one layer deep and lined up, biggest to smallest, however that fits into the drawer space.
ABK, always be knolling.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so yeah, let's switch to you. What was your best shop acquisition of 2024?
I had a handful of them. I'm gonna say like I probably have top five, maybe six things. One of them was your suggestion, which was I believe it's an Incra miter gauge for
Yes.
the miter slot uh, gauge instead of as a replacement to the crosscut sled. And for those who don't know, um, that that sliding miter gauge has adjustments so that you can tighten it up in the slot and take all the play out of that miter gauge. So you get very, very repeatable 90-degree angles if you want to set it to 90 degrees, but it's very easy as well to set to 1 degree increments. I'm certain of, but half degree
Hmm.
increments. I think you can get pretty close to.
Yeah.
Um, that's been fantastic. And one of the other reasons for that is it has a stop block that's incorporated into it. That is, I've seen advertisements, and rightfully so, for Jonathan Katzmoses, right? He has his zero movement stop block, and I own one of those as well. But when you look at what Incra put together on their miter gauge, it has like it's almost like a timing or what am I trying to think of? A rack, a gear rack,
Yeah.
as how it intersects and locks in. So it's not just at 1 point or 2 points, it's a long, about a 3 or 4 inch distance where it locks in. And you can move it over one tooth, and they're very accurate and repeatable and all those things. And then it has a fine adjust on the bottom of it that's more of a sliding pin, I think is a great way to describe it. And you can flip it up out of the way very quickly. And just the whole thing is very well thought out, very well designed, very durable. Like it's made really, really well.
Hmm.
And I thought, when you recommended it, I thought, I don't know if I'm that guy. I'm kind of a sled guy because you could just throw it on and not think about it. And that has been in my arsenal almost the entire year of 2024. And I can't tell you how many times I've used it and thought, man, I am so glad I bought that thing. So thanks for the recommendation,
Yeah.
Brian, but
Yeah.
that is definitely on the top of that list.
Yeah, and
Uh,
to bounce off that some more, like if you're a sled guy and you don't have an incremiter gauge and you buy an incremiter gauge, I can almost guarantee you'll throw your sled away. I have not used mine in over 12 years now since I bought that incremiter gauge, just because it does all the things. There's no reason to have a sled anymore if you keep your table waxed.
yep. That's Well, yeah, I haven't used my sled. So I bought a saw stop at the end of last year. That not on my top list of things. It's a great saw and all those things, but it's very little difference between that and what I had before.
Yeah.
But um, when I bought that, it's like, well, I probably need to remake my sled so that it fits the new saw stop. And I never remade my crosscut sled. So I still have my old Delta Unisaw sled sitting next to the saw stop, and the poor thing's just been unused since I swapped out those saws. So uh, Yeah. So back to you. The toolbox is kind of number one. What else
Number
did you
one.
add to the shop?
So yeah, so this goes to my finishing room, my spray booth. The spray booth had some, just some lights in it, and it was lit okay. Part of the spray booth is that it's a freestanding building. It was basically a shed that I insulated. When I first moved in 12 years ago or so, we moved from Oregon to Colorado, and that was a huge expense to get here. So I didn't have money to drywall. So the walls are basically I took all the moving boxes and stapled them to the walls to seal in the insulation so I didn't have floaters in the air. And that's how it's been. And so it's like brown walls. And those brown walls just suck up light. So I have yet to to drywall it. It's on the list of things to do. But I bought a whole bunch of fluorescent shop lights and lined because they're LEDs, so you can daisy chain from one side to the other. And I just daisy chained a whole bunch of lights in there. So you turn it on and you're standing on the sun basically. Um, and that's fantastic for a finishing room because now I can actually see like, oh, there's a little run or a little something, or the stain color got blotchy on that end. I need to address that. So yeah, that's been huge.
The one little weird hair that flies out of
Falls out and falls into
outer
the finish.
space
Yeah.
came from Saturn and it lands right in the middle of your workpiece while
Right.
you're
And
spraying. Never
right.
fails.
Those are
So
the weird things that I don't notice until I get it back into the main shop to do the final assembling. It's like, oh shit, I need to sand that off now and start over again. But
uh,
now I can see it.
I was going to ask, do you carry a pair of tweezers in your back pocket when you're finishing?
No, I used to try to do that and pluck it out. I'm now to the point to where like I'm gonna let it dry. It's easier to buff it and then shoot another coat than it is to fuck it all up with a pair
Yeah.
of tweezers or try to dig that out.
I was gonna say it's a double-edged sword. There are now. I would say if you have a bug crawling through there, it's better to pull the bug out
Yeah,
because you can when you sand him off, his legs are still going to be there.
be inside. But yeah. I mean, the number of times where I have a blemish that I need to address, that I've successfully addressed it while the finish is wet is like 1 out of 100. 99% of the time, I just make it worse. So now I'm just
Yeah,
like, oh fuck, I'm gonna come back later.
yeah. I was gonna say the other good shop tip for people is don't worry about picking out whatever it is. Take a piece of tape and wrap it so the sticky side is out. Sometimes you can hit your finish with that, and it actually pulls the rest of the finish in, uh, which is it doesn't make a ton of sense because you're making a bigger blemish, but you can spray over the top of that sometimes. So anyway, good
Yeah.
thing to try on a test panel before your finished piece to see if
Right,
you can
right.
do it. So,
And I've also over the years have gotten kind of good with like air using the spray gun as an airbrush, so I can kind of
mm,
airbrush things in. And then I have some art brushes and some dyes, like some walnut dye that like
yeah,
somehow there was like a weird little glue dot on one of a piece that I did, and so I got some walnut dye and some shellac, and I painted over the glue dot with some grain. And then
yeah,
after that dried, I shot it again with a clear coat, and it looks like grain.
looks
You
like it
can't.
belongs there.
Yeah, so that's saved me a lot of times now that I've kind of added that skill to my stuff.
There's a whole group of guitar repair people that repair I would call it vintage instruments that are worth substantial amounts of money. And if they have to go in and put a patch into a guitar top or something along those lines, they'll go in and patch it and the wood won't match. And they'll start by painting grain on the new patch to match the piece that's there before they put color and finish on.
Hmm.
So they start by matching, okay, here's what the grain should look like. And then they start layering over the color and they do the same thing. How does color lay into that grain? And then eventually the clear over it. And it's amazing. Like you see the patch and it stands out like a sore thumb to start with, but then when they get done, it's like totally obscured by their finishing techniques. So I'm amazed with that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, do you have another one that you
I
have absolutely loved putting into your shop for
I
2024?
do, and this is on the other end of things, on the CNC end of things. I have an Avid CNC, which I think uh, you may be an Avid owner now. You may be an Avid user now. I don't know, but I know that was on your list of things to get. Um, I bought a Cyclone vacuum pump from Black Box Vacuum, and it has made such a difference in the way I work. So anybody who has been in the CNC world understands how difficult work holding can be. And it has to be part of your process of design. Where am I going to drill holes early on to hold this work piece so that I can free the thing from the original container that it's in, so to speak? And it's a nonstop battle to get the right amount of work holding, but not too much. And if you don't do it by screws, then it's by tabs or by plastic nails that hold things down. There's always a point of failure there. And it just so happens somebody on Facebook Marketplace had this, and it was a pretty good deal compared to they're not cheap to buy new. And this guy had just bought another big CNC, and the vacuum wasn't going to work for that CNC. So I stepped in and bought it from him. And I thought, I'm not sure how good this will hold. It'll probably be one of those things where I have to use a combination of this vacuum and some tabs and some other things. And I'm telling you right now, um, I've probably cut 100 2 foot by 4 foot pieces of MDF for some new products that I've been doing. I mean, it's just been running nonstop. And I think I've had two failures out of those 100 sheets. And when I say failures, it's that one part shifted toward the end of the cut, and it's usually a pretty small part. So that has been by far and away has made the most impact. I was probably in every sheet even with tabs I was having failures, and so I was probably having to cut 4 sheets for every three that I was cutting. So just to make up parts that were getting ruined somewhere in the middle. And I'm at like a 98% success rate right now with that thing. And I'm
Nice.
slowly learning. Every time there's a little bit of a failure, I go in and maybe add a tab or two. And gosh, I had one sheet that had 360 tabs on it, something like that. And every tab, for those who don't know, you have to go in and cut every one of those tabs when you get done cutting the sheet. So I do mine with a little hammer and a chisel. So you have to hammer and chisel apart 360 tabs just to get your parts out of the sheet. And then you have to go over to the router table and cut those tabs off. So it was an insane amount of, hand work toward, you're using a CNC to get rid of the handwork. And I was having to go back in and handwork all these pieces to get the tabs cut off. And now, uh, in any given day, I might cut uh, 10 to 12 sheets, and I go in and maybe have to cut off a dozen or so tabs. So that has made such a huge difference. And the folks at Black Box, I made a few modifications to it. It has three vacuum pumps on it, and my CNC is so small it really only needs one. But I'll turn two of them on. So I put individual switches in there to control each of the pumps. And then I put a contactor inside the box so that the Avid CNC can turn the vacuum pump on and off. So whenever I'm getting ready to cut, I hit the big green button, the big green go button, and it turns that pump on. And then when it's all done cutting, the pump turns off automatically. So that's probably my number one
Oh,
addition to the shop in terms
yeah.
of quality control and time saver.
That's interesting. We'll have to talk more in the future about how that pump on and off with the Avid works. Is that
Yeah.
controlled in Mach 4 or
Yeah, it
okay?
is, but you can control it, whatever their new, I can't remember. They have some new software as well.
Centroid or Synoid or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Centroid, yeah.
Centroid. Yeah.
So the actual control unit for the Avid has two receptacles on the bottom of it. two electrical receptacles, and there's two ins, there's two outs. So, for instance, the router, right? It turns on and off with Mach 4, when you start your
Hmm.
program. So you plug power in from the wall, and then you take power out to the router, and it's controlled by a relay. So there's two relays inside there, one for the router, theoretically, and then one for fill in the blank, anything that you want to use. And so I use that second one to control the vacuum. Now, if you have a spindle instead of a router, now you can control that other relay for whatever you want. So you could turn on a dust collector and your vacuum pump uh, with Mach 4 or with Centroid.
So as long as it knows to turn that socket on, basically. Interesting.
Yeah, you can assign that socket to any. I think in G code it's an M code. So out of the box, it's like M8 and M9 or the vacuum pump, which can also be a mist pump. It can be a million different things, whatever you
Okay.
want. But you can go in Mach 4 and say, M9 or M5 or M6, whatever controls that relay. So whatever your software is that you're writing your G code with is probably more important to understand how that works. Mach 4 can route any signal to anywhere pretty simply. So there we go. There's my second item. What's your third one,
My
Brian?
third um, is I put a computer in the shop.
Oh yeah.
This was something that I've never really felt like I needed, but because I'm getting more CNC technology stuff in my shop, I decided like I'm gonna go get a computer and put it in the shop in anticipation of getting a CNC, and then also just having it networked to my main desktop where we're at now, so I can design my stuff here, get my client's approval, and then I can pull that exact same file up in the shop and not have to spend a day doing shop drawings. I can just build right off the model. And then if I make any kind of changes, I can save it to the model. So that way, if there's any kind of warranty or anything, I can look back and see exactly how I built it. To where before, if I made a change, I would have to hopefully had made a note on it and put it in a file, paper file somewhere to hopefully remember to find if that's
Uh-huh.
the deal. But now it's all in one spot, and that has helped huge amount of efficiency. Has saved me an entire day of drawing shop drawings when I can just build right off the model.
Yeah, that is yeah, having a computer in the shop is a good thing.
Yeah.
I haul my laptop back and forth all the time because it's a Mac and I've
Hmm.
got all my fun software on it, but I've also got the Avid PC out there, and then I've got a Linux box for the Tormach. So
Yeah, and then
my
also
goodness.
have my shop schedule,
Oh
my
yeah.
Gantt chart shop schedule. So if I'm getting behind, I can edit my shop schedule, know if I need to call the client, hey, I need another day or a week or whatever,
Yeah.
or have to
Yeah.
work weekends, which just happened with the Las Vegas project because that I had a drop dead date if I wanted to make the truck that they were paying for. Otherwise, I had to pay to ship. So
Ooh yeah.
yeah, I worked 40 days without a day off to make
Woo.
this one happen. But it was a big project, so big paycheck.
Yeah, that's a stretch. That requires a trip to Aruba or something when you get done
Something.
with one like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I got the flu instead, so
Oh yeah, well yeah, trip to the hospital.
yeah.
Trip to the doctor's office. For those out there, I'm guessing you have your shop computer. Is it connected by wire to your home network, or are you wireless back to the home network?
It's wireless. It's on a Wi-Fi. There's
Nice.
yeah, I have a hub on the other side of the wall that can hit the house Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. I'm struggling right now with I have a laser cutter that has Wi-Fi, and
Hmm.
when I go out in the shop, I have to switch my computer's Wi-Fi over to the laser cutter's Wi-Fi. And I've been trying to find a solution to get the laser cutter's Wi-Fi to be I don't know what you call that. Let's just call it a slave on my other Wi-Fi, but I haven't been able to figure that one out. And I found a video this past week. Somebody deciphered essentially the Wi-Fi unit on the laser cutter is all in Chinese. So when
Oh,
you log into it, there's no option to change it to English. So you have to know Chinese to be able to get in there. Well, this guy kind of went step by step. Click this box, click that box, type this number, and move forward. So I'm kind of excited about getting my laser cutter on the same wireless as all my other computers.
yeah. So do you have enough juice out there? Is the signal strong enough?
It is. I've got. Oh my goodness, we bought one of those super gamer Wi-Fi routers at one point in time.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, like they're supposed to be strong enough to melt the paint off your walls or something. I don't know what it is, but um, I think from the far end of my garage to that Wi-Fi router is maybe 60 feet. I think it's probably closer to 50 feet. So it's not that far away, even at the furthest reach of my shop. So it doesn't have to go too terribly far.
Yeah. All right. So do you have a third thing that you've
I I do. So I would say I'm going to combine two of them because they go together.
okay.
Um, the track saw. I don't know. You watch everybody use their track saws, and I've just always thought, well, I grew up cutting things with a circular saw, just with a chalk box and a circular saw.
Hmm.
You can get a pretty straight line if if I don't know, I guess it's just practice, right? Like you just
Yeah.
line it up on there and you go and it's pretty darn straight. But I mentioned that I'm cutting an insane amount of MDF on my Avid CNC right now. In fact, I had to put shelves in my garage just to hold the pieces because they were too much to stack up on the floor. I'm getting, what is it? 8 sheets of MDF is about what fits in my truck before my truck starts to scream at me. So you cut those into 4 pieces each. So you got 32 pieces of MDF. That's a pretty big stack to have in the garage, and my wife parks in there. So I had to get shelves to put all that stuff on, but um, had been just cutting it with a circular saw, so marking it out, having to put a line on there with a level or a straight edge, and do that 3 times for every single sheet. When you're cutting 8 sheets and it's 5 degrees outside, you kind of want to go faster. You just want to get it done with, and
Hmm.
my poor neighbors, I annoy them with the sound. So just trying to be considerate of them. I bought a track saw, and I thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not. And so I went on the what I would call cheaper end, not the cheapest, but the cheaper end. So I got a rigid from Home Depot because that's the power drills and all that stuff that I have. So I'm already on that battery platform, that ecosystem. And I thought, well, I'll get their track saw because it just uses the same batteries and it should work out. I don't remember what I paid for it. But when I bought it, they had discontinued it for a little while. I kind of panicked that they weren't going to sell them anymore because I needed a longer track. It comes with 2 shorter tracks, and the
Hmm.
joint in the middle of the track isn't awesome. So anyway, they wound up. I don't know if they just had a supply chain issue or what, but they brought them online again about a month later. Bought it. I have been so happy with that purchase. I can't believe it. Um, I make a couple tick marks on my sheets. I go out there and that track saw just buzzes right through them. Being able to set the depth of that thing almost on the fly, it has made such a big difference. But along with that, there's two other items. The MFT uh, style top. I bought one from Fred Sexton, which his channel is called Bristol Artisan Co. And he sells track tubes and some other things that all kind of go together with the MFT. And the MFT, for those who don't know, is basically a big piece of MDF with a bunch of holes in it for putting dogs and other things where you can do repeatable type cuts. And there's little hooks that you can buy for your track saw that clip your track saw into the dogs, and you can set up stops and do other things. So for for those very, very repetitive things that I'm doing right now, that system has, gone from when I came home with a load of plywood, maybe taking me a couple hours to cut through it and get it all stocked in my garage. to now it's a matter of like maybe half an hour to cut through an entire load of MDF and get it stashed in my garage. So it's given me back a ton of time, and the track saw just cuts perfectly straight all the time. Like you don't even have to think about it. And again, I didn't think I'd be a fan at all. Like I was probably an anti-track saw guy for a long time, and now that I've got one, I don't know that I could live without it. I know I could make do, but it's definitely for breaking down big sheet goods. It's very fast. Along with that, so kind of tack on number two. Number one was the MFT. Tack on number two would be Bora speed horses. So they're saw horses that Bora makes, and they fold up just into one tube. They're just made out of steel and aluminum. But to set them up, you literally just pull the handle and both legs flop out of the bottom of it. So it takes all of 10 seconds to go from no saw horses to two saw horses. And then I've got the track tubes that go between the two saw horses. And then I've got a piece of foam, rigid insulation that I set on top of it to make a 8 foot by 4 foot work table that weighs almost nothing. It packs away into it. Those speed horses, they pack away into maybe like a 4 inch by 4 inch package, and whatever a sawhorse is in width, like 3.5 feet or something like that. So I can store them in the corner. They take up no room, and that's my workbench when I need to do big production
All right.
stuff. So that whole system for me, again, has just made a huge
Huge.
huge dent in how I break down my big sheet
All
goods.
right. So I have two questions about the rigid track saw. I have the Festool, you know, premium track saw, right? So is the rigid powerful enough, or do you find that it's bogs down at all?
So that's a tricky one not a tricky one to answer. What makes the biggest difference is there's 5 or 6 different battery sizes that you can get from Rigid.
Mhm.
From I don't know if it's 1 amp hour, but there's some really kind of cheesy batteries that come free with some of their drills, all the way up to like a 16 amp hour battery, and that thing's a chunk. Um, I think I've got some 12 amp hours that I use because, the bigger they are, the more they weigh. And if you're using a cordless drill for any length of time and you have to move, it can really
Hmm.
uh, do a number on your wrist and all the things there. So 12 is about the heaviest that I want to handle. So I've got a few of those batteries. When you hook a 12 amp hour battery into that sucker, it rips through 3/4 MDF, which MDF's just kind of sawdust anyway, right? It's not
Yeah.
that hard to saw through, but I have used it to saw through some hardwood and some other things, and it's done well. I would guarantee if I had a track saw that plugged into the wall, it would be much more capable. And I know there's other manufacturers that have higher powered track saws, and really, when I bought it, it was a very singular focus. I need to break down MDF and 3/4 inch birch plywood. That's the other stuff that I cut with it. But it goes through that stuff. No problem at all. I cut through a lot of plastics, so I buy like 1/2 inch ABS, and it just rips through ABS like it's not even there. So
Yeah. Has it got good dust collection?
I have no
No,
idea.
no,
I use it
you're out in the
outside.
driveway letting her rip. Okay.
Yeah, and to kind of fill that picture in, I literally sheet goods do not go into the shop without being broken down. So I never take anything into the shop that's much bigger than half a sheet, and so that's always been my
Yeah.
rule. I drop the tailgate on my truck, set up my sawhorses, and just break stuff down in my driveway.
Interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna derail us here. Uh on a side tangent, like we're talking about the best things we've bought, but like the worst thing, the biggest mistake I feel I have made when purchasing tools is buying Festool. with the
Ooh.
exception of the domino. Festool is the biggest lie to woodworkers out there. I guarantee it's shit. It's just shit. I own the big version of the track saw, the TS
Oh yeah.
7 something whatever, the big one that you can like cut through 8/4 thing. It can't handle that. It can't handle 3/4 inch hardwood without making some weird chug noise. Every time I cut, it's like chka, 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 and it leaves a rough cut, like there's something wrong with the saw. And it's done that since day one. And when I bought it, I called the place that I bought it from. I'm like, is this normal? And they're like, oh, it just sounds like it's like people complain that it's not, that it's underpowered. I think there was something wrong with the saw, but getting it replaced or sending it back. Like I'm in the business of making money, so big deal that they got a 3-year warranty on it. If I got to send it back and I can't use it to make money. So
Yeah.
yeah, like 8 of my Festool purchases, 5 of them have some kind of issue with them. Like that's yeah, like I would much rather buy a rigid and throw because I'm sure the rigid was a few $100s,
Yeah.
where the track saw was like $1,500 or something. So I could buy like 5 rigids for the price of this $1,500 saw, right? Like
Yeah.
Festool is just the biggest lie to woodworkers.
Well, so there's something to Festool, and I'm not a defender of Festool. I own two things. I own a vacuum and a rotary sander. And but what I would say is if you're a guy who has to work in an occupied office, they do have, there's something about the dust collection and the packaging and just the cleanliness of that system. There are other groups now making similar things. Merca
Hmm.
comes to mind, and some of the other was it DeWalt that I saw? Somebody has, that vacuum setup or the dust collection setup that's real portable that has a stackable storage system that goes with it. That to me is the value of Festool is that you're going into the seventh floor of a occupied law firm to
Yeah, but
fix
not
somebody's trim.
anymore though, because
Yeah.
I was just on a job site in Vegas and this guy had invested in the Milwaukee pack out set.
Yes.
And I will buy that right now if
Yeah.
I had the money because it is rigid plastic compared to the Festool flimsy
Yeah.
ass sustainers. It's quality tools inside the pack out for the ones that you buy. Like it and it's solid. And it has like this metal clip that clips them together, not this little flimsy little plastic thing that you got to make sure your sustainers are all lined up perfect to get the flimsy plastic thing to turn. You just stick it down and it snaps together, grab, flip the button and pull it off. I was like, dude, you've convinced me just by watching you work today, working with you today, that Milwaukee is the way to go for pack out tools, right? Festool let their overpriced lunch eat them out.
Brian Way has a company called Kaizen Foam, Kaizen Inserts,
Hmm.
and he's been making foam inserts for pack outs for as long as pack outs have been a thing. And I have watched vicariously on his Instagram channel all the different pack out over the years they roll out. Here's a new size, here's a new function, here's a new accessory for these things. And uh he's got a thing I think that locks your pack outs down to a tailgate or something. He's got some really cool accessories that go with them. And I've always said, gosh, if I was a guy who was working out of a Ford Sprint van or
Hmm.
whatever, or I guess it's not a Ford, it's a Mercedes Sprinter or Ford.
Or Transit
Yeah, if
or
I was
Dodge,
working out of a
whatever.
truck like that, that would be
Yeah.
my system. I have no doubt in my mind. I did recently buy some Klein tool uh, cases, and their system is pretty interesting as well. The way they lock together, I mean, they like sit on top and then just push back. There's nothing to buckle or anything like that. It's just it all clicks together, and then to let it go, it's a move of a thumb. I,
Yeah.
I only bought the Klein tools because their bins inside. I had some bolts that were 8-inch long bolts, and I needed a parts bin that could hold something that was at least 8 inches long, and they were the only ones with a parts bin that was made that size.
All right. So before
And
I buy my Milwaukee, I'm going to go check out Klein also.
now, Klein, I think when you compare the prices, they're pretty expensive. super nice, very rugged, clear tops so you can see inside, all those kind of fun things. But I make a handful of different products where I might have 10 or 15 different size fasteners in the same product. So I like to have a box with every single fastener that goes into making that thing
Hmm.
so that I don't have to search through a pile of fasteners for my quarter 20 inch and a quarter long hex
Yeah,
bolts.
yeah, yeah.
They're just all there. Or yeah, and there's always a mix of SAE and metric in the same product, and so it just gets real confusing trying to go through other bins. So anyway, that's how I landed on Klein. Plus, they're orange and Skyscraper is
It's
orange. It was like,
orange.
well, this
Yeah,
is
this
this is
is
serendipitous.
convenient. Yeah.
But they have things that hang off the sides of them too, which I thought was that's a pretty cool thing. But I've used the DeWalt version. Not impressed with
I'm
with
not
the
even sure
DeWalt's.
DeWalt. That's not true. I just bought a DeWalt angle thing that attaches to your thing because I got in a
Mm,
jam and I needed a zip in there with a little zip, and I was just at Home Depot in Vegas trying to solve this problem that I created for myself, and I was like, oh, that's the tool I need. That will do it. And it was Home Depot because Home Depot carries DeWalt.
a little pro tip. Black Friday, those usually go on sale for like $20 every year. I don't know what
Well,
it is.
I can't wait till then. I had to solve my problem before I
I
got back on the plane.
I know, but it's just I've seen them several times. I'm like, I should buy one of those, and I never have.
Yeah, it was
Um,
$20
oh,
regardless.
okay,
So yeah, right
okay.
off the shelf. So yeah, it
So
was
maybe
cheap.
they've just made that permanent. I know at
Yeah.
one point they were a lot more expensive
Yeah,
than
well, they
that.
got a fancier one that had more bells and whistles, but the $20 one um,
Yeah,
solved
they
my
jam.
problem. Yeah.
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 Well,
All right. So sorry I
oh,
derailed you on my hatred of Festool, but I feel like I have wasted so much thousands of dollars on something that was supposed to be high end and last forever, and it is breaks, it's underpowered, it's flimsy plastic. It's just not.
well,
It's shit.
what is it they say about the happiest 2 days of a boat owner's life are the day he gets his boat and the day he sells his boat?
Yeah.
I think the same could probably be said for Festool owners
Owners,
in,
yeah.
in a lot of situations. But
Listen,
you mentioned, let's be fair, the domino is,
the Domino is a game changer. That's the
yep,
only thing I've used out of all the nine pieces that I own. That one is the one that I can say was worth it.
yeah,
Yeah, it hasn't broken and it does the job that no other tool does.
yeah,
No other tool in the market
yep.
does. But
I've
yeah,
been tempted to buy a domino, but I don't need a domino. I know there's going to be a point in my life where I want one. Like I'd love to do this thing, and the domino would be the right thing. It'll be one time use. And I'll be like, man, that tool was awesome, and then it'll just sit on my shelf. So I don't need a domino, but
yeah,
I'd like to have one.
they're
If I
very
find
cool.
one in a dumpster, I'll get it.
Okay. I'm sure
But
there'll be one on Facebook Marketplace at some point.
well,
Some,
so kind of back to our topic now that we're done dumping on Festool for a little
yeah,
bit. And I would say this. I would always be open if somebody says, you know what, maybe you've just got the wrong pieces and parts for what you're doing, but maybe you should look at this instead. I'm always open to that, but yeah, I think I'm more of a fan of some of the other stuff. But as far as shop additions, things you've added to your shop, is there anything else on your list, Brian, that's worth mentioning?
not for 2024. I've had a pretty well outfitted shop for a while, and when you buy tools, you lose profit.
Yeah.
So your money you could be spending on other things are going
Well,
into a tool. If the tool, especially a tool that you don't use every day, if a tool just sits, then yeah, it's
yeah. Tools are an expense and I look at them just like employees. If they're not making me money, they're not a good investment.
yeah,
And there are some things that you just pull out once a year, and when you pull them out, they're super valuable. Those are okay, but it's the ones that go behind the scenes for a decade at a time that really kind of make your
Yeah, and that's
decision.
one of the things that I've kind of leaned back in. I know people talk a lot of shit about Harbor Freight, and I have certainly have let the magic smoke out of many Harbor Freight tools.
Oh yeah.
But but that's like if you just need it for a day, right? Like uh if you just need a drill for a day or something, or whatever. Like it's a cheap way to use the tool once and then throw it in the back of the drawer for that other time you need that weird angled drill or that weird shear or snip or whatever, whatever. Like they're just dirt
Yeah.
cheap. It'll get as long as it lasts to the end of the day, it's paid for itself as the prices is.
Well, so let's do this for a second. I used to say I can probably buy somewhere between 5 and 10 Harbor Freight tools of a given kind, say an angle grinder, before I could
Hmm.
pay for one really good quality tool that might whatever. Well, now I've got 5 shots for this thing to outlast whatever it is that I bought that was
Hmm.
expensive. And sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not, no doubt about it. But I would say over the years, the Harbor Freight stuff has gotten substantially better.
Oh yeah.
When I started shopping there, I want to say it was maybe not 20 years ago, but it's getting close. It had to
Hmm.
be at least 15 years ago, when they really started to spread their wings. The stuff that I bought that long ago, a lot of it was garbage, just
Hmm.
garbage. And it'll last me through the day, but probably not much longer than
Yeah,
that,
right.
especially if you're putting it to hard use. Although I had one pneumatic angle grinder that I thought this will last a week, and it lasted me something like 12 years. And I was like, that may be the most impressive $10 I've ever spent in my life, because
Yeah.
it got the snot beat out of it. But that said, the Icon tool line that they have for socket wrenches and
Hmm.
mechanics type tools, I bought 2 of their ratcheting head sockets, which they're not cheap, right? Like they're mid price. You could probably, it's probably maybe a little bit less expensive than what you would find at Lowe's or Home Depot in the Craftsman or not Cobalt, Husky lines. I bought 2 of those things and they're fantastic. Like I can't believe how good a quality they are. And I've seen a ton of YouTube videos since with the shootout between the two. So I would say their toolboxes have come along. Their toolboxes used to just be trash. Like
Hmm.
you'd bring them home, fill them up, and the second day you're using it, the slides on one of the drawers would give up the ghost, and you'd have this weird wonky drawer for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Um, it's not that anymore. So that said, give Harbor Freight another chance if you haven't been there in a while.
Yeah, the new
You
Bauer line is
Yeah,
great. Like that Bauer line of power tools, yeah, it's run. I have a couple of their grinders and sanders, and those things are just workhorses. I have yet to burn one out, and I beat the shit out of them.
yeah.
Like,
And I would say this too, right? Like look at all of the manufacturers that used to be made pretty much exclusively either in the States or Germany or Japan or somewhere. They're all in China now. So they're
mhm.
all being made, maybe not by the same group of people, but they're all being made with the same ingredients, I would say. And so a rising tide raises all ships. And I think what's happened is Chinese manufacturing has just gotten much, much better, much more
Oh,
sophisticated.
hugely. I was talking to this one guy. He makes vending machines, and he has this metal shell for the front of his vending machine that has all the cutouts for all the buttons or whatever. And he, with the potential tariffs coming, he's like, "Well, I'm gonna shop around here in America to see what I can find if I can beat the tariffs or not." And he cannot find a American manufacturer that can make them to the quality spec that the Chinese manufacturers are making it to.
Yeah.
And every American manufacturer is like 15, 20 times the cost, even with the tariffs from China.
Yeah. And that's been one of my issues is I would much rather have an American manufacturer do some of the things that I hire out. And the problem is the cost is the cost, right? Like you pass that along to your customer as long as your customer will pay it, it's fine.
Hmm.
But my issue is the minimum quantities. Most people don't want to talk to me in the United States unless I'm ordering 10 to 100,000 of an item.
Yeah.
Some are at a million minimum. When you're talking injection molding, that's where these numbers are coming from. And when I need something made like that, I might need 1,000 pieces, not 100,000 pieces.
Right.
I don't have the room to store that kind of inventory, and it's really frustrating. I would much rather pay an American company twice as much, and nobody wants to talk to you. I'm sure there are folks out there. They're just really hard to find.
Hard to
They
find.
either
Yeah.
don't advertise or it's all word of mouth or whatever. So you got to get hooked up with the right people. But that said, let's get back on topic. So that was a look behind in terms of what we did in our shops. I think from a work standpoint, you've talked about Las Vegas a handful of times.
Yeah.
Um, Looking back at 2024, what are some of those projects you did? I know you've talked about a few of them here on the podcast, but I think it'd be worth going through. What are some of the top projects you did that maybe you're most proud of or kind of pushed you in a way that you hadn't been pushed before?
So yeah, the 2023 going into 2024, that was the roughest time I have had since I've been in business. And it's not that I wasn't busy and had work coming in, but it was really terrible projects. Like the projects just I weren't excited about. A lot of people wanted me to just replicate stuff they had seen elsewhere. It was just
Mm.
making money stuff. So it took me a long time until towards the end of 2024 until I got back into the swing of really making ultra custom stuff. And this Vegas project was one of those. The client really let me kind of just like dictate the design direction. Um, with the interior designer's blessing, of course, because their interior designer had a lot of stuff. So I'll show you a Google photo here of my favorite piece, which was this king size headboard that I just finished up in December, and then it had to go up an elevator here. So let me show you here. So this headboard, walnut headboard, it has these swoopy little curves in there, and then there's some other furniture in the room that matches these swoopy curves. And then the nightstands have these little cutouts for this pink finger pole, another little swoop. But this thing had to go up in an elevator, so each one of these panels between the swoop is a separate panel, and they had to have some kind of little half lap to overlap on each side. So, when there's a little bit of a wood movement issue, and then I screwed through the half lap to hold it all together, and then a French cleat hangs it to the wall. So this is like my proudest piece of 2024.
Wow. How many did you make? Just one?
Just one. Yeah, this took most of December to build. Just templating, and so like this curve here, I created a MDF template because I don't have a CNC big enough to do that. So I created an MDF template for this inside curve, and then I 3D printed a spacer to fit around the bushing of the router to create this matching piece on this other side or this offset. And then once I had that offset, I was able to use that offset to create this curve. And then once I had this curve, I created another bushing to create the half lap that's behind here. That that all the screws are in to hold it all together. So it was like this huge geometry mess to figure out how to make all those without a CNC and a MDF template.
Wow.
Yeah.
Killer project, Brian.
So that's my favorite piece of 2025. And there's some other ones that were kind of cool, but like I said, I got off to a real late start on finding creative projects for that first part of 2024. I was like depression was setting in because I wasn't really building cool stuff. I was just building stuff.
Paying the rent, I think is how
Paying the
you
rent,
describe it at
yeah,
one
paying
point.
the rent, just paying the rent. But that was one of my favorites.
That looks awesome. Now, you did, I hope I'm not wrong about this. You did the workout at Red Rocks as well in 2024, didn't you?
Well, it was. That was a 2023 project.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, that was a
okay.
2023 project. And that was
I,
beginning 2023, but the construction got delayed, so it may not have gotten delivered until 2024. I don't remember, but that
yeah,
was like a year ago. It's
okay.
been a year or two.
I,
Yeah.
kn- I knew it was right on that line. I couldn't remember when that got installed and delivered and all that kind
Yeah.
of fun stuff. So,
Yeah, I think it's been
um,
out there a year or so that I built it 2 years ago because construction got delayed. So I stored it for a year.
okay, okay. And then I was going to ask too, you did a bunch of shop improvements, but I think that was 23 as well, wasn't it?
20, that was before Red Rocks, just before Red Rocks. So that was 2022
Okay,
was when I got the new dust collector, or
okay.
2021, 2022. Yeah, that was right after COVID, I think.
Got
Yeah.
it. You delivered that project to Vegas. Did you go out there and do that yourself, or did you take help with you?
Uh, well, by myself. So what kind of how it happens is this is through an interior designer, and this interior designer is one of my main clients, and this interior designer hires a lot of the same guys every time. So there was a group of five of us that were involved in the project in various different ways, and one of the guys owns a truck, and so he's basically the trucking company, the help
Ah,
unload guy, the help assemble guy, the help hang it on the wall guy. So that's his thing. That's basically what he does for interior designers, and he's out of Colorado here, so it's very convenient. You rent his truck, you put all your stuff on, and so everything the interior designer ordered for this house, the TVs, the kitchen refrigerator, fancy refrigerator, or whatever, all goes on this truck. And then us as the team fly out to wherever that truck is going and meet him there. And then we all are like the unload crew. So
gotcha.
since it's I don't really work for the interior designer by my own business, but as part of getting the job done, um, I just bill them a day rate for whatever they need that day when they're there. And part of that is the assembly bill to assemble the furniture that I've built. So basically fly out, help them unload, help them install rugs and hang pictures and whatever, and also assemble this. So yeah, once I got there, I assembled this, and the guy that drives the truck helped me lift it onto the wall. Um, and that, yeah, so it's, same guys every time. So we're all friends and help each other out.
I I only ask that because I know there are people who listen to our podcast that are wanting to be furniture designers, furniture builders, and there's a side to that that doesn't involve being in the shop,
Right.
and it's definitely get your hands dirty kind of work, and it's not. I guess you can handle or you can hire people to handle that stuff.
Hmm.
It just costs a little bit more money to do that, but
Right.
um, a lot of folks who do custom furniture also are heavily involved on the install side. So
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know how other custom furniture people handle it or whatever, but that's just kind of the relationship that I built with several of my interior designer clients that, you pay me for the day and I'll be your guy because it just works out better that way. Because that way I'm not
yeah,
sitting there on the curb looking like I'm not a team player waiting for the moving company to unload the truck so I can put my stuff together. So it's just kind of
yeah,
like and they appreciate it. And then also, I'm kind of an extra set of eyes because on big houses, they do hire a local extra couple of guys for maybe labor ready or whatever to help unload the truck. And those guys aren't necessarily careful or get attention or give any shit. So while the interior designers are in the house saying, put it here, put it there, I can be out there saying, hey, dumbass, don't drop it. Or I never say dumbass, but like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very professional. Like, hey man, this box says not to pick it from that side. Let's turn it around so we can dolly it from the appropriate side, and just kind of like make sure everything gets off the truck, not broken.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's important.
Yeah.
Everybody spends, you know, a lot of time putting those things together, and then to have them break in the final
Yeah, and that's not to say
20
that
yards,
that
right?
stuff doesn't happen on this last trip. The truck driver thought this one table had a metal top, and so he set something else that was heavy on it when he was packing, and it cracked the top. And so that table, wherever it came from, had to be reordered, and it'll go. We're going out phase two in a couple of months for some other additional work in the same condo. So
Wow.
that'll get
Wow.
that'll get rectified on phase two,
Yep.
along with the chess table that I showed you
Yep.
a couple months ago. Yeah,
Yeah. That'll be awesome.
and that'll be my favorite thing probably for 2025.
Ha! I can understand why.
Yeah. And you have a favorite thing you've created for the 2024 year?
I think so. And it's a group of things. Um, on the guitar side of things, I usually roll out. I always tell people it takes about a year from an idea to be an idea to it showing up in our store as a viable product, right? Like you have to take the idea, kind of work it around, make a prototype, figure out, does the prototype work? If not, let's make some corrections to it. Once you have the prototype working like you want, then you have to go through a whole process of how do I manufacture this? And in that process, you're looking at how much time does it take? How much material does it take? Is there a way to manufacture this more efficiently to allow me not to make it cheaper so I can make more profit, but to make it less expensive so that the consumer can have a lower price point, right? I have an amount of profit that I want to make off of everything. So if I make it cheaper, the price goes down. If it's more expensive, the price goes up. It's not hey, where can I pinch my pennies to make more money off of this thing, right? It doesn't work that way in my world. And I know uh, really good businessmen would tell me that's foolish. I'm one of those people that I like to sleep at night, not think that I'm getting one over on everybody. And I want to make sure that the people out there who are using our stuff are getting good value for their money because I'm very conscious about that when I buy things. So anyway, all of that said, usually takes about a year from start to finish. One of the companies that I would never have considered a competitor to what I do, they are sort of a parallel company. They were very focused on the acoustic guitar side of things, making jigs, fixtures, and tools for people who make acoustic guitars. They went out of business November of 23. They started closing their business down. And at the end of December 2023, they were just closed for good. And not because they went bankrupt or anything like that. They retired and just wanted out of the business. And it's a really weird business to sell. I think they sold some licensing rights to some folks, but I had called them and asked them if I could buy their IP for a number of products, and they told me frankly the IP is not for sale. Well, okay, that's interesting. So I kind of took their catalog and looked at, okay, what kind of hole is this going to leave for all these people who are guitar makers, right? There's all these things that they supply that, quite frankly, nobody else does. And so I just started going through there and saying, okay, I could make that thing, I could make that thing, I could make that thing. And I picked a number of different products out and didn't want to create carbon copies of what they did. That's no fun for me, right? My business is not just about putting products out and making money. Otherwise, I could have just blueprinted what they had and remade it. So what I did was go through and redesign everything that they had in a way that I would design it. And then again, looking at manufacturing, I have different tools in my shop than they have. I have different access to other shops that they didn't have. So I took a really hard look at how can I manufacture this different? How can I make it better? How can I improve the user experience and all those things? And I wound up, I put out just over 20 new products in 2024, which I usually figure if I put out a new product every other month, I'm doing really good, which is 6 products a year. Not very many.
Hmm.
And uh, in December, I think I rolled out 9 products in December alone, right before Christmas, because I wanted to get them out before the end of the year. But we put more than 20 new products in the catalog, and I am super proud of that. So it's side benders for acoustic guitars. So you see an acoustic guitar. Here's one here. Uh, you know, these sides right here, how do you get them? How do you take that from a flat piece of wood and make it into that? Well, there's a side bending machine that does that through heat and pressure, and so I redesigned their side bending machine to kind of fit a little bit different format. But then I made all of my molds backwards compatible to their machine. So if somebody has one of the old machines but wants a new pattern for a guitar, I created that pathway for them to do that, which I'm super proud of that because I've gotten a ton of calls and emails from customers of that company saying, I thought I was at a dead end when they went out of business. And now I realize that we can keep this thing going without having to spend another $1,000 on a new bender. So I did that. So side benders. And then there's what we call outside forms. So once the side is bent, you have to put them in a form and kind of clamp them so that they don't flatten back out, so to speak, over the next couple days, and then you actually build the box of the guitar inside of that form. So there's four different guitar shapes that we came out with bending forms for and outside molds for, and then in the bending forms we also have cutaways. So this little trick right here, these sides are super easy to bend. The bends are nice and wide. This cutaway gets really tight and really difficult. So I came up with a new way. That was one of the things. The company that went out of business did not have cutaway molds because they either couldn't figure it out or didn't want to mess with it. So I went through and solved that problem. How do you do that? And came up with a way to fairly inexpensively make that crazy cutaway without too much headache. And then we did template sets, so acrylic template sets for all of those. So if you can imagine, four different body types with two molds, a template set, and outside molds for each one of them. There's 16 things right there. And then we did a mortise and tenon jig for cutting the mortise and the tenon for a neck to fit into a guitar body. And that was a year's worth of work just on that particular piece back and forth with the guy who did the original design. So the design we came up with, we're calling V3. So it's the third iteration of that mortise and tenon jig, and it works so slick. I'm actually right now making a guitar with the guy who originally designed that, and we used the new jig on my guitar last week. So it was one of those, oh man, here it goes, trial by fire. Is it going to work? This is the proof right here, and it worked flawlessly. And the joint was so tight, which means the templates are just spot on. Which kudos to Laguna for making a great laser cutter. That thing has just been a godsend. So anyway, yeah, there were other products as well. A plate joining jig that's for joining the backs and tops of guitars together. They generally, your pieces of lumber to construct a guitar are no wider than about 8 inches, and most guitars are somewhere between 14 and 15 inches wide. So you have to join plates up. And I put together a plate joining jig, again, sort of next iteration of some things that I had seen out there. And we've spent the tail end of 2024 and the front end of 2025. I feel like we're just working around the clock trying to keep up with the demand there. So it's been a really good move to get into that market, and it's been a ton of work to bring all those things to fruition. But that's absolutely my number one favorite thing that I did for 2024. Um, have you got anything else, Brian, that you did in 2024 that's worth honorable mention?
Well, yeah, but I think since we're almost out of time here, we
Okay.
should move into our goals for 2025 because that's kind
Yeah.
of what I'm excited about now. Like one of my goals is to move into a larger shop space
Mm.
and to have an employee help me. Like that bed thing, it was so big, it was so massive. It would have been great to have another person catch it on when it's coming out the drum sander on the other side. Um, there's just so many things that are breaking down my body as I'm getting older that if I had a guy that could help me would be huge, just huge. But to have that guy pay for himself, I need him to be able to do other things while I'm doing my custom artwork or whatever. And so that's what the purchase of the Avid CNC comes into play. I'm working on developing several different products that I can either have queued up as a made to order. So if someone orders it, throw it on the CNC machine, cut it out, glue it together, finishing room, and out the door. Or, and some pre-made products that I can have made that somebody buys it, drop it in a box, ship it. Like cutting boards are a pre-made product. I have those, but
Yeah.
like everybody's in the cutting board game. So I want to develop a whole bunch more products that are small like that, that are just like drop in a box and ship that I can try to sell through my website, through Etsy, through a couple of gallery relationships that I have, gift shop type situations, possibly that kind of thing. And so my employee guy can be running the CNC machine, and then when I need him, be like, okay, let's hit pause on that thing, and then let's do this thing, and then you can go back to that thing. And that way, he's earning his paycheck. And these things may not be the most profitable thing, like a custom piece, but it's cash flow. It's
Yeah.
creating opportunity. It's creating stability in the business, that kind of thing.
Well, and the thing that I would say is if you have a repetitive product like that, you learn an awful lot about manufacturing process and how to make it as streamlined as possible.
Hmm.
And all of that stuff bleeds over into the custom things that you do
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
so once I get this Avid up and running, I'm hoping to start to focus, uh, a few hours a day, maybe do my custom work, and then in the evening, if tinker with that until I get it up and running. Or like, sometimes you're like, I have this custom product going on, but then the client left town without signing off on the stain sample, or some stupid irritating thing like that happens like all the time. So then I could be working on this while I'm waiting to try to remanage my client to be like, hey, like, can I ship this to your vacation home so you can approve it?
Yeah.
So we can keep your project on track
Well, it goes back to working on the business rather than in the
in the
business,
business. Yeah.
and uh, that's a huge differentiator. Right now, I'm doing trying to do both, and that's awfully
It's
difficult.
rough.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. And so you got any thing you want to share that you're excited about going into 2025?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. Number one, I'm making the guitar right now. The gentleman I'm building the guitar with is Robbie O'Brien of O'Brien Guitars, and this
Oh,
guy,
I saw that on Instagram. Yeah.
yeah, he learned to build guitars in Brazil with some pretty well-known international classical guitar makers, and then he's been an educator for guitar construction for I think 25 years or more. And he teaches classes out of his house now and brings in international, uh, internationally known guitar builders to his home, and then has groups of people over there to build guitars and see how they construct guitars. I've gone to some other classes there on modal tuning and some other really super nerdy guitar things. And so my goal is I'm building a guitar with him right now. He does a 6 day course where he starts from a pile of parts, and at the end of 6 days you have a finished guitar ready to play, strung up and ready to go. And his list for getting in to build a guitar with him is full until 2027.
Wow.
And he and I have been working on a handful of different products together. And I said, Robbie, I would just love to build a guitar with you. And you're busy until 2027. Like I can't block my calendar out in 2027. I don't know where I'm going to be at that point in my life. And he said, you live here close. I have some students who only come in for a few days. They don't do a whole 6 day course. They might come in for 3 or 4 days because they already build guitars, but they want to do something, some slightly different detail. And so we work on it together and solve through that problem. He said, so I get weeks where I have a day or two that that I'm free. And he said, if you're up for it, I can just give you some dates on the calendar, and whenever we can get together, we'll just we'll put together 6 days over the course of the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And so we did days 1 and 2 last week, and I think next week he already came up with a day 3 for me. So we'll get the
Nice.
guitar. Right now, the box is built, the neck is on, so we just need to do some neck carving and a few other little things to get it prepped for finish. And then I'm actually going to take it home and do the finish myself because I like to spray finishes, and he teaches French polish in his coursework. And I said I'd much rather have a nitrocellulose lacquer finish than a French polish finish. So I'm going to bring it back, finish it myself, and then take it back to him. We'll install the bridge, string it up, set it up, and do all the finish work on it. But that kind of leads me to, could I build a guitar without Robbie's help? Absolutely, I could, but I wanted to see how somebody who's built 1,000 guitars does every step of it. And I have
Hmm.
learned so much from him with regard to what's important in terms of detail and what is absolutely not important to detail. And there are things that he's just in there laying waste to this stuff. He's like, it doesn't matter. It'll straighten out in the next step. And, those are things that I would have agonized over. And it's like, it's not worth it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to do this flush trim, and next thing you were going to do is cut a rabbit in there for all your bindings. So what does it matter if the flush trim's perfect or not perfect? Well, guess what? It doesn't. And so there's no reason to agonize. Just get it done. And so there's a bunch of things that way that I've really seen. And it's not that he's a sloppy worker. I don't want to make that uh, the take home. Where where I think he shines is he knows where he needs to be precise, and he knows where it doesn't matter. And I'm learning that from him. And the end goal, this guitar that I'm making with Robbie, is going to be super nice. It's going to sound beautiful. We went through, did some spectrograph uh, plotting to see where the guitar is tonally right now, just as a box. And then he pulled out like 20 other charts that he's made over the past few years of other guitars where he's done the same testing with the same software. And he said, we started here, and then when we put the finish on, it goes here. And then when we did this step, it went here. And then when we finished it up, it landed right here in this perfect spot. And we're right in line with getting one of those really nice sounding guitars. So understanding what it takes to get a great sounding guitar when you're building them, all of that sets up the end goal for me in guitar making is to do some highly custom, uh, one-off, incredibly tailored guitars with regard to inlay and artwork, and working hopefully one-on-one with clients to design their dream guitar and what it might look like. And the key to that is, if you're going to charge somebody big bucks, and when I say big bucks, 20 or $30,000 for a guitar, it better sound good. It better be constructed well, and then it better look awesome. And so I think the look awesome part I've got. I can do the artwork. I can do all of those things. I've got incredible CNC and laser and all those things to make all the inlays the way that I want to make them. And I've done lots of practice with that. I feel very confident. So building with Robbie is going to give me the other components of construction. So making a guitar that's going to stay together for a very, very long time, hopefully generationally, but then also from a player standpoint is going to sound pretty amazing. So that's what I'm most excited about 2025. I don't know if I'll get to kind of Greg Porter's very first version of that. I think I'll probably go through one or two more guitars here in my shop, just kind of getting them under my fingers and making sure I have all those techniques and can repeat um, accurately. How do I want to say it? That I can repeat with knowing that I'm going to have success on the other side, right?
Right.
Um, and not like, is this one going to come out or is this not one going to come out? Like if you take a deposit from a client, you got to know that thing's coming out.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing that I'm excited about 2025 is I've got my little Porsche 356 project that I'm working on.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
seen you post in a while on that.
I haven't touched it since maybe November, and for the reason that we got so many orders over the Christmas holidays, I got caught up a week and a half ago from Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So it has just been a slog of, I have an office job. I work during the day, come home and work all night, and then work all weekend. You can
Hmm.
only do so much as that guy. So a key, just like you said, Brian, I'd love to find a bigger workshop, but at the end of the day, I've got to find people who can handle some of this work. So I've got a friend with a really large CNC that's out of town, and we've talked about me flying down to Bristol, Tennessee, to where he lives, and getting all of the programs I need him to cut set up and sort of
Dialed
like
in.
thumbs up. Hey, if you hit the big green button, it's going to make these parts exactly like I need them made. So that's going to hopefully offload some of my workload there to let me get back and do fun projects like the 356
Yeah.
and making custom guitars.
Yeah. So I was thinking we should close it out, but I thought of another question. Is there things that you're going to do less of in 2025 that you're going to pull back from?
Um, Gosh, that's a great question. I I don't think so. Um, I I think 2025 is going to be a year for me that is potentially going to push Skyscraper to a point where it is going to be a viable business that can have employees, that can really produce an amount of revenue and have a customer base that could make it a big thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is going to be a season of life for me this year to make it grow legs and have that life that I'm going to be putting in a lot of hours
Yeah.
and a lot of effort to make it go. And that's fine. I feel like once I get that framework set up, um, I don't know if let off the gas is the right word, but maybe take a step back from how involved I am. My hands are on almost everything that walks out the door right now. I need my hands to be a little more hands off and rely on some other suppliers and vendors and labor to do those types of things. It's not the highest best use of my time.
Yeah.
How about you, Brian?
Yeah. Pulling back, I'm gonna pull back on YouTube. I've already started to do it. The amount of effort I've put into YouTube, um, and the amount of views and all that has grown, but the revenue hasn't grown. The revenue has either been flat or shrank
Yeah.
down, right? So to continue to put something that's not really like the audience is growing and the views are growing, but the money's not growing. And then when I look at it, like, what do I want out of that? And what I want out of it is like an advertising avenue. Like,
Yeah.
instead of paying advertising, okay, so now I get paid to advertise. What little AdSense I get back would be paying for me to advertise on the platform. So instead of going like, oh, here's how I built this, and here's how I did this, and here's this little trick on how you can cut this cleanly, it's going to be more of like, here's the project I built. I hope you will buy one.
Yeah.
So be focusing on the consumer instead of the woodworker,
Yeah.
because focusing on the woodworker does not. I've lost all interest in trying to find a sponsor because, as we've talked about Festool, like all these other manufacturers, they're just the products are just products, right? They're just,
Yeah.
it's not anything special. And then the negativity that comes from the woodworking community, you have your core audience that's like, oh, good job, but then 3 days later, then just the rest of the community is just negative. They just
Yeah.
come to your, it's the culture of YouTube to come to a YouTube video and trash talk whatever is happening in the comment section. So I'm no longer investing in the YouTube or in the woodworking community or anything like that. It's switching the switch over to marketing, um, towards people that want to buy the thing that I make.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of understand whatever social media you're on, who the audience is and why, why are they there? And what value do you bring to them and vice versa? And everybody always talks about bringing value to your audience. Well, the audience brings value back to you as well, right? Like they're consuming your content. So, from an AdSense perspective, they should be contributing that way, right? Or or they're consuming your content because they want to buy something similar, so they're contributing by buying something and adding revenue to your company. And understanding those two things and matching them up is incredibly important. I would tell you, I have two different YouTube channels. One is for me to share with the community of like-minded people, and that's my Greg's Garage.
Hmm.
It's weird projects that I do in my garage, and it's like I think somebody might benefit from seeing how I do this weird weld, or bend this metal in this way, or put this case together, whatever it is. And so it's very community driven. But my Skyscraper Guitars channel is very much about the customer who might buy my tool and showing them how to use it, what it's for,
Hmm.
and how it might change the way that they do the work that they do. And it's very, very different audiences. And I was trying to combine the two, and it did not work.
Yeah.
It was making me lose people who were interested in the projects. It was making me lose people who were interested in guitars when I tried to combine them. And it's like, you know what? Let's just do this separately because I'm bringing very different value, and the audiences are bringing very different value back. And so I'll be interested to see how your channel changes and evolves, and how your audience changes and
Changes the
evolves as
balls.
you do
Yeah.
that.
Like
Yeah.
I've thought about setting up a second channel where I do more detailed stuff, but like the amount of effort to
It's a
create
lot.
that and then get money back
Yeah.
to pay for that effort, I'd much rather put that into my business growing for building stuff for people, building my
Yep.
art, building things that I want to build, not teaching. Teaching just unless you're like a Philip Morley where everybody wants to take your class,
Yeah.
um, it's not you're not going to make money, or at least not. You got to focus. I got to focus on one or the other. Is basically what I'm
Yep.
saying. I can't do both because there's not enough. There's not enough money coming from both to keep it going, and so I got to do the one that I want, which is build furniture.
Yeah. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the clock, Brian, you mentioned it a little bit ago. We've been on here for well over an
An
hour
hour.
now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we haven't bored everybody to tears. I don't think we have. But hopefully, everybody's been able to hang in for a little extended version of our podcast here. But it was really great to hear some of the 2024 successes and things that you've added on, and hear about some of those projects. But then I'm also super excited to see what you're gonna do in 2025. I've been so impressed with how
Thank you.
how your how your business and how your skills have grown since I've known you, which has been a few years now, 3 years
Yeah,
maybe.
we've been doing this for 3 years, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, just seeing all that stuff grow, I'm excited to see what 2025 has in store for us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with Skyscraper Garage. I was very impressed that you took this little line, this idea of your benders, and just like 2 months later, you had a viable prototype, and then now you're manufacturing them. So yeah,
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. Well, cool. I guess we'll wrap it up there. I'm Greg Porter. You can find me on YouTube, and you can find me on social media at Greg's Garage and Skyscraper Guitars.
and I'm Brian Benham. You can find me under Benham Design on just about every platform out there. And you are listening to the Maker's Quest podcast. If you want to listen to any of our past episodes, go to themakersquest.com and you'll find them there. Thanks for listening.